Hey, Andrew.
What's up, too?
I'm going to put you on the spot today. It's going to be about how well, as co-founders, we know each other. Let's just get
Oh, is this like the
into
newlywed game?
kind of, but let's not say that because we already confuse enough people. So, as of today, what are my top 3 hobbies? What do you think they are?
Your top 3 hobbies. Wow. When I met you, the first thing I would have said is that you loved baking cupcakes. But I don't know that you've actually baked cupcakes in a while. Your hobbies change all the time. I think right now it's ceramics. Are you still taking the ceramics class? You were making like really crazy keyboard keys at some point, like keycaps. And then, which you never even offered me a keycap. And then is there a number 3? The number 3 is your cat or your one of your bunnies, one of your dogs, like the whole menagerie that you have at home.
All right, fair.
Was I close? Did I get there?
You're pretty close, and because I'm a serial hobbyist, I was trying to make it much more broad. I like to create things, and all of them that you mentioned basically means like, hey, at some point in time I wanted to make cupcakes, and then at some point in time I wanted to make ceramics, and at some point in time I wanted to make keycaps. And I found all kinds of reasons why it did or it didn't work for me. So first of all, cupcakes, I could not give enough away, and I was eating too many. That's just flat out the truth. I could not, I made like maple bacon cupcakes and lemon curd cupcakes, all kinds. And over time, people are like, look, I can't eat that many carbs. So they would sit around, and then I think I'd eat 10 of them. Like, no one should be eating many cupcakes. So that's why I stopped making cupcakes. And that's the truth there. And as far as like keycaps are concerned, most of them have to be made with resin. And I didn't realize how toxic resin was until I started researching, kind of digging into it. And I was like, I really want to do this, but I don't think a toxic hobby is a good one for me to pick up. So that's why I stopped that. When I was making keycaps, I wanted to make really, really small ceramic stuff to put inside of them. And that's kind of how I started to get into ceramics. And then I took a few classes, and I really enjoy throwing. There's like something very therapeutic about using your hands and to have to really focus on making this thing and not focus on thinking about other things as you make this piece. So there's
Mhm.
like it's just a spinning thing, the sound of it, your hands like just shaping something just really like works with my personality.
Yeah,
And
Patrick Swayze's hands on your hands.
wait,
No
you're
one's gonna
totally
get that.
I
We're
was about
too
to say,
old.
like, you just totally dated yourself. I can barely remember that.
That's all I think about when I think about.
Do you have a song? Are you grooving? Are you just gonna turn on the mood lighting? Let's go. Okay, so for you right now, I would say it's jujitsu, choir, and jazz piano.
That's it. I'm pretty easy to figure out. I find things quickly, and I go. I'm like a go deep kind of person. I don't. I would say I think I do have a lot of hobbies. Like, there's a lot of things I go deep on, but when I go deep, I go like really, really deep. For example, jazz piano. That's probably the newest thing, basically, right? But I've been doing that for 5 years now. Learned how to play piano during COVID, and after COVID was over, kind of joined a jazz group at the City College, and have been playing jazz with that group for a while. Because of that, ended up joining choir, and I'm part of the concert choir there at the City College. Actually, we have a performance this weekend. Actually, did I tell you about that? Anyways, you're invited to the performance. Doing it this weekend. We're doing Vivaldi's Gloria and other stuff set to Vivaldi. So it's all Baroque music. So if you want to hear us going Baroque, then we're gonna go Baroque for it. Yeah, I've been doing that for I think a couple of years now. So that's the newest part. But jujitsu I've been doing for 20 years, judo for 30 years. They're kind of related. I'm just basically picking people up and putting them down on the ground and then trying to squeeze their necks. I find things that I like, and then I kind of stick to it for a very long time because I have that personality where I like to be like an esoteric, like expert at the things. Same thing with programming. At this point, I've been writing code for 30 years because I started when I was 10 years old. I loved it. And so I just kept going.
I really appreciate that. And I think That's definitely the top quality that you have that I wish I had, and that's probably why I probably seek you out as a co-founder. And going back to why I asked you this in the first place was, how well do we know each other as co-founders? After 10 years, despite what people think, we do not hang out like all the time after work. Work stays at work, and we have a shared group of friends, but we don't need to feel like we're family outside of work.
Yeah, that's totally true. It's interesting that we have a very deep overlap, but we actually don't hang out with each other at at all, actually, because we kind of see each other every day or talk to each other every day already as it is, and we just kind of leave each other to go, do our things. We're co-founders, but we don't have to be like best friends, although we have a great relationship through the business and everything together. But it's not required that, and I think it's something that I think is a highly respectful thing about each other, is that we just kind of leave each other live our own lives the way that we want to live it and the way that we want to spend that time.
So I have another question for you, just put you on the spot here. You've had, as have I, had a history of being like a solo consultant for years and then having like the co-founder dynamic. And after all that, we always get the same question about like, hey, how do you decide on who you would choose to be a co-founder? What is the biggest trait? And outside of that, we already know it. Like, hey, before you decide that someone, like you want someone or you want that co-founder relationship, you have got to do a project where honestly you fail. I think that's like the biggest thing. And not fail as in it didn't work out, but where you had some hardship, I guess is the
Mhm.
better way to phrase that. Which is you went through the ups and downs on something, so you really know how someone is when the going is tough. And without that kind of friction set, like you'll find that like later on. I think like most businesses break up because of that later on, because they never expose themselves to that friction or avoided that friction altogether, right? Things bubble up and you can't avoid it forever because it's just not realistic.
Yeah, every business eventually runs into some sort of issue, and there's going to be a disagreement somewhere, somehow, and you'll never be able to plan out what it's going to be. So you can't agree on certain things ahead of time. And then no matter how well a business is going, there's always some sort of difference of opinion, even just a difference of wants eventually, right? And staying aligned there is probably the hardest thing about having a co-founder. But yeah, people still ask me that question all the time. Hey, how do I find a co-founder? And my answer is always, you have to do a non-trivial project together. You have to do real work. Somebody who you get along with at work, at the job, whatever job that you're working at, you like to hang out with and have a beer after work, or like shoot the shit at, in front of the water cooler. That's not the same thing as actually working with them. You can work next to somebody and never work with them an hour in your life. So you have to do a non-trivial project together. You have to have, some skin in the game where there's some real stakes, some real goals that you're trying to hit, no matter, what the time frame is, right? Obviously, longer is a little bit better. If you've worked with somebody for 3 to 6 months, that'll be plenty of time to tell if that's somebody who you want to work with for the long haul, or at least the next couple of years, which is what it's going to take to build a real non-trivial substantial business.
Now that you've had the experience of working for yourself and then working with a co-founder, what would you choose next? And obviously, it doesn't have anything to do with me, but it's like, okay, you've experienced this like version A and you've experienced version B. What would version C look like for you?
What would I do next? Honestly, too, I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that right now. Right now, I'm just thinking about what we're doing today and what we have to do. If I were to start another business in the future, I wouldn't do it without a co-founder. There's just too much to get done to not have somebody who's there along with you to go do the journey with you. I would definitely have a co-founder, and it'd be the type of co-founder, ideally, kind of like us, where we're in it for the long haul, where we can have an understanding about how we want to approach the problem or the business and what we want it to do for our lives, right? Because a business isn't an end in itself. It's here to, provide a living. It's here to provide a means to an end, which is for us to live the kind of lives that we want to live and then have the impact with people that we want it to have. How about you?
I think it depends on the type of business. A real business. And by real, I mean one that needs to make money, keep doors open. I definitely would do with a co-founder. But If it was like a for fun business, right? Like a side hobby that turned into a business, then I would just say, I would knuckle around and do that myself because it's more exploratory and you're not beholden to some constraints when it comes to, I need to provide food for someone else. Like I need to make sure that I hold up to my end because Andrew needs to get paid or vice versa. You have to think about these things when you have co-founders. Whereas I'm going to segue back into when I was a solo consultant, my days and what I was doing was much more flexible to my mood because I didn't have to be responsible for anyone but myself. And there's something nice about that. But when the struggle is real and I am pulling those, 21 days straight, 12-hour day things by myself, and that can be overwhelming. But if you want your business to survive by yourself, then you have to do what it takes if the going gets a little rough, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of which, we here decided when we were co-founders that we didn't really want to do the long 21 days straight. Did we ever do that in this business? I don't think so. I don't recall a time where I worked as obsessively once we created Cleverific, once we started Cleverific, that I did in my younger years, let's be honest. And then when I was by myself, right? Because you almost felt like it was like feast or famine. And so if you didn't work, then who knows when the next project is. And you had to keep the coffers like going. And at the time when I was working for myself, I had an assistant. I always had like at least one assistant, and I need to make sure that they get paid. So if things like happen, I didn't get to go, oh, hey, Andrew, what do you think about this? What can we do? But as a consultant, you just have to power through literally the hours. Like if you want the money, you have to power through the hours.
Yeah, there was definitely, back in the day, the whole feeling of I've got somebody who's willing to pay me billable hours. And I've got also the only way that you'd be able to justify those billable hours if you provided value. And you needed to do as much of that as possible while you had, good clients, and then also try to bring in new clients at the same time. There's definitely been times I think since we started Cleverific working in the business that we definitely schedule crunch times. Part of that is that I think crunch times are useful as a tool for narrowing focus and helping to drive strategic initiatives forward. And I think we do a good job of managing those crunch times where for us, they're twice a year. They're generally in May, leading up to the end of May, like kind of April towards the end of May sort of time frame, and then September towards pretty much now for BFCF. And they narrow focus, and that also gives a kind of feeling of seasonality, right? Where you can get a lot of really focused work done, a lot of hard work done, and then, take a little bit of a break after that. I think it built a lot of camaraderie in the team to have those types of crunch times. So I kind of think of it as, if we're using a music analogy here, it's like you're having all these rehearsals leading up to a date that you're going to play the show, right? And then you finally play the show. There's not a lot of situations like that after you get out of school, or if you're not involved in theater or music or anything like that. That's what ends up creating, these lives where potentially, you might feel like you go to work day in and day out and you do the same thing over and over again, and it's just never ending. But if you have those crunch times, you have some times where you can breathe a little bit. For our team, we use that time to do like really exploratory work, like big picture kind of thinking. And then that starts to narrow down into these crunch times where it's execute, execute, execute. And everybody is really focused during those times. It is tiring, exhausting, but we also do it within a 4-day work week so that, there's a lot of balance even when there's crunch times. And then after that, we do a good job, I think, of putting what we call like cool down zones or cool down tasks in place where, your mushy, jello-y mind brain can start to, recongeal.
And it took us, I don't know how many iterations to kind of get to this format. We tried maybe 4 or 5 different versions before we settled on the one that worked for us, right? In terms of how we like to create the product and how it feels to work on something either too much or too little. Like, oh, you didn't have enough time because you're burning through like features, or you spent too much time on this. And we did create like some constraints to help us move through that. And it was something that we went back and forth with in terms of a very strict formula and a very loose formula. And between the two of them over time, we got to this happy medium.
Yeah, yeah. We basically found our own process. I wouldn't call it one thing or another. It's definitely not Scrum. It's definitely not Agile. Definitely not capital A Agile. Where we ended up is a system where, we call it our workshop model. It's something that we've iterated towards, and changes in the team and changes in the team makeup and size, I think, have driven how we modify that process and incorporate new people into it, and how they think and how we all need to work together. So it's definitely not a rigid system, and that could be frustrating for, I think, some people. But once they get into the flow of that, I think what they generally find is that, one of the strong suits of that is that, like, we allow you space to get the work done. We're a great team for the types of people who kind of consider themselves like craftspeople, people who like to be really, really good at their job, and like to be really good at building things or getting things done, and getting things done, not just done for the sake of being done, but getting them done well, versus just, cranking through stuff until they get to their next promotion, whatever their goal might be there.
Yeah, I agree that we're a full remote workshop, and we built definitely some kind of culture around it, because I know that, not you, me, but other people at least definitely talk to each other outside of work, and to be able to do that remote and also have the long-term stability of the team. Because has everyone been with us around 5-ish years or something right now? Does it seem like that?
Yeah, pretty
4 or 5 years?
Yeah, pretty much. So
And
that's like the average tenure on the team is, they probably longer. It's like half the lifetime of the company at this point.
I think we did a good job, trial and error, obviously, but we did a good job to settle on this place where I think that most people are happy about the work that they do, and also get the time off that they need, because that's really when we set out way back when, like 10 years ago, that's our main goal, was be able to live a life outside of work. Really was our biggest priority. Like, we love the things that we do and we love the product that we built here, but it's in service of our lives outside of work. And we recognize that for ourselves and for everyone else on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you heard about this thing called 996? I think it is. Am I getting those numbers right?
If you ever bring that up again, this is over. Yes, I have heard of it, and it sounds like a complete nightmare.
Can you explain what 996 means?
9 hour, wait, yes, wait, 6 days, 9 hours, and then where's the other nine that I totally forgot? Okay,
It's
wait,
it's
okay,
9 it's
okay,
9
nine.
a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
That's why it's completely removed from my brain. It doesn't even matter. Like, the idea of anything that's longer than what we're doing is just a bad idea. I think isn't that like the standard culture in South Korea, if I hear correctly? I mean, it's
Yeah,
a
I don't
standard
know.
somewhere.
I hear about it being a thing in San Francisco, I guess, and that little tech bubble. And it's so sad. I find it so sad, and it makes me sad to think that people are living their lives that way. For stock options, right? Like, you're going to get out of your stock options, and only for maybe 1 out of 100 people, it's going to be worth anything. And they've just sunk 4 years of their lives working all those hours for nothing. Right.
Right,
And
right,
even if you did work all those hours and you had, some big money getaway, you just
right.
sunk some of the best years of your life, where you could be out there, living it up basically. And for what? For money,
Right.
so I'm really sad for those people.
I mean, definitely money solves money problems, but it doesn't solve all your problems, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
and one of the things that I've talked about before, like maybe not said this out loud with you, but it's unique to software, this idea of getting in and getting out and like exiting real quick, and like having that unicorn like payday or whatever the else, like, no,
Yes, because it's
no,
the American dream to
yeah,
make
right.
money with computers and then never touch computers again.
Right? Yeah. How many people have you known, like, went to farming after being a code warrior? I have a friend. I mean, he's literally on the farm right now on his 10 acres trying to get to the next farmer's market. He went full 180 out there, and it's harder work, but he loves it more. Right. And it's a matter of like how much you love the work, right? And sure, like, hey, what we say is, if you love the work and you want to put in extra hours, go for it. We're just not making you. That's a huge difference, is that if you feel like you're into whatever you're creating and you want to put some extra hours into it, no one has ever stopped anyone to work more, right? So there's that. And one of the things that I did notice earlier on too is, if I mention that I was putting in like X amount of hours, people on the team may feel compelled to do the same. They feel like, oh, if she's doing it, then maybe I need to do it. So even if I do it, I try definitely not to mention it because my choice is my own and it's not indicative of what I want other people to do.
Yeah, totally. And I think we try to do a good job of that where we don't wear it as a badge of honor, essentially, right? We're not part of this whole hustle culture BS and stuff and trying to pretend that one, every hour that you put in is a valuable hour. There is diminishing returns. And don't get me wrong, sometimes you just gotta crank on the hours to get something done. Definitely recognize that, right? But at some point, like you gotta sleep, you gotta have a real life, right? You gotta remind yourself why you're doing these things here. That there's a whole world worth living that's like outside of work. In our one-on-ones with our team and everything, I definitely ask, like, hey, are you taking some time off soon? Right? You haven't taken some time off in a while. You should. That's to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the time off that they take and managing their energy and their flow and everything, and really taking advantage of our unlimited paid time off policy.
I'm learning something new. I'm glad you did it because I have not done that. And Andrew, by the way, you have not asked me. Aren't I part of the loop here? Because
uh,
I
yeah, I
recognize
mean,
this
you've been
year.
traveling in Portugal for like the last year and a half. I
Yeah,
don't
but
have to worry about
I mean, sure, but I was working
that.
the entire time. And in between working, I shuffled around like 5 animals across Europe. It was a lot of work. We can have a whole 3-hour conversation about getting animals transatlantic through the English Channel and back and the whole 9 yards. And then moving 3, 4, 4 apartments in the same time. And it's pretty chaos. And going back to the fact that, I was able to do that because, we're so flexible and willing to figure out how to make things work versus flat out saying no to things, right?
Mhm.
Because there's always more than one solution. And then also that we can adjust if it's not working. That's how we see about like making decisions. And one of the things I mentioned before is that we have the ability to make decisions quicker. That's like a shared, understood thing between us. Like, we assess the pros and cons, but we don't sit around and mull things over for too long. We're just like, you know what? My quick assessment is that this will or won't work, and let's give it a try. And the biggest thing about that is making sure that if it's not going the right way, then we just pivot. Most of the time sooner rather than later. It's that whole workshop model. Sometimes you're just going to have to test to see if something works.
Yeah, totally. And I think like one of the ideas that I keep in my head while we're making decisions is how do we make sure something is a two-way door where, just because you walk through in one direction doesn't mean you can't walk out the other way if things aren't working for you, right? So that we don't feel like we're trapped in anything. We don't get caught in that sort of like sunk cost fallacy there, right? And it allows us to do things I think that where we don't have to fear a lot. That's one of the frameworks I think that we use to make decisions.
Speaking of fear, I'm going to go all the way back to hobbies. Do you get nervous when you're singing in front of people or playing in front of people?
You know what? I don't anymore. I remember being so nervous the first time I played a jazz concert, as I guess. So, this one class that I took at City College, and I took it a couple of times because it's fun, it's basically a jazz rehearsal. They put you in a band of your skill level. And then you're on your instrument, and it meets every Friday morning at 9 a.m., goes from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it's just a 3-hour rehearsal. And the final is they put you in at a music venue here in town and you play a 30-minute set with your band. And so you're up there, it's a packed house. When you get in there, they're all just like friends and family of the people who are going to be on stage. And there's 4 groups that are playing throughout the night. So it's about 2 hours, you play a 30-minute set. I remember being so nervous when I got up there. You could kind of see my hands just like shaking as I'm in front of the keyboard there. But you know what? As soon as the first note goes, as soon as like the drums and the bass kind of come into play there, and I'm there on the piano as part of the rhythm section there, right? That all kind of goes away. And I'd done a lot of practice before to kind of make sure I'm prepared. I'm a preparer for things, but also all the work that I had done actually in judo and jiu-jitsu, competing at like pretty high level there for a long time, it really helped prepare me for things like that as well. So at this point, like I could get up on stage and I kind of just don't really have any stage fright anymore. I used to have it a lot though. I remember for jiu-jitsu and judo competitions, for me, it manifested as like this hollow feeling in my legs where my legs felt hollow and I couldn't even push. It felt like I couldn't push off the ground. So it took a lot of, I think, psychology work and meditation work to get over that, to get to a point where I was able to kind of master that and have control over that. And it was less about having control, it was more about being in the moment. That was the breakthrough that led to my like world championship win there for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, I do remember that. Like there was a lot of meditation involved for sure back then. We talk
Mhm.
about it when you came in. But like translating that to choir, I guess it's the latest thing you picked up, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
How long is it like how long do you think it took you versus times before? Because now you're in this habit of getting more comfortable more quickly, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, choir is so easy because you're
You're
part of a
still among
whole
people?
choir. You're not up there by yourself,
Okay.
You're not on stage by yourself or anything. And so, when I'm in there, it's so low pressure for me.
Nice,
So
nice. That makes sense.
I just go in there and make noises with my face. It's easy.
Okay, so then I'm going to rewind one just because I'm on this topic. I know that I actually saw one of your performances, and I know that you had like a solo portion of that on the jazz piano. So do you recall like
Mhm.
how long it took you there to kind of get comfortable being solo?
Jazz piano is it's a lot. It's compared to choir, like where you can kind of learn things by ear. Everybody's kind of used to learning how to sing by ear and trying to match tone and stuff. But jazz piano is very interesting because it is some nerdy music. Like if you don't think it's nerdy music, it's super nerdy music. So there's the whole chord scale theory that goes with the chord changes that you're playing, how those pieces fit together. There's like rhythm study. There's study of what alterations and what's the function of those chords that are playing there. So it's super super nerdy stuff. When you're playing that, the idea is that you're playing these notes and then they fit in with what the chord changes are and the feel of the song and also what the other musicians are playing because it's an interactive call and response sort of music. So I was very nervous at first. And honestly, though, at the beginner level, which is of course where I still am, you just go out there and do the best that you can, but you try to have a conversation there, right? It's kind of like learning a foreign language where you have to go out there and no matter how scared you are, you have to try to have a conversation, even if you're just, ordering croissants. And, you do what you can. Sometimes you fail. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes something cool happens there. But what's really fun about having that type of progression and getting yourself out there is that every time you go out there, it's a little bit better and a little bit better. So when I look at what I've done at the beginning, it's just night and day from what it sounds like now, which is really fun. And it's really fun to have a skill like that, like where unlike jujitsu, you have no idea, you never know if you're getting better because as you're getting better, everybody's getting better too. And so it's still really hard to, choke someone out. Whereas for music, you actually can hear yourself and you'll sound better too. Have you been in any kind of situation like that, like an on stage or, you got to perform kind of situation recently?
We're starting to speak more, so that definitely was not something I did for a long time, and now starting to speak more in public. It's not something that I have had too much practice in, to be honest, before I jumped onto the stage for the first time. And even on video, just getting comfortable, like having a conversation is just something that just take practice. I'm learning how to say yes to everything so I can put that practice in. That's essentially it, right? You say no, then you can't practice. And doing something in your room and doing something in public are two totally different things, right? I think that's for me is that just finding the places in order to do that is kind of what I've been practicing. And I wish I had like a little more tenacity, like you did. I'm just so like nonlinear and creative that I meander a lot. And that's like
Mhm.
good and bad. And it's a constant battle of like constraining myself and allowing myself the time to do what I naturally do, right? So that's probably part of like my practice as well as not only is it speaking in public, but staying on track with the thing that I like want to talk about. Like I realize this that I can talk for an hour, but if you asked me, here are the 5 things that you needed to say during this hour, did I say them? Did I say 3 of 5? Like that's kind of more where I get stuck. And even if I like memorize that, just the way that I think, I just hop from things to things. At some point in time, I have to remember to stay on course. So maybe
Yeah.
like one day I will graduate to teleprompter that will me. But for now, it's like keeping these things straight in my head. Like, did I already talk about this? Did I segue correctly? So on and so forth. And the problem is like as soon as you think about that, then you've kind of broken that flow. You have this natural cadence. And if you slow down a bit to kind of remember where you are, all of a sudden there's like weird pauses, or you totally don't even remember what number 4 was.
Yeah. Too, this reminds me of something. Do you remember? So it's been a while since we brought someone new on board and into the team, but we have a practice of everybody takes the Clifton Strengths survey, right? And so, do you remember when we kind of first did that with each other and with some of the early people on the team? And
Yes.
what do you remember about that?
I think it was for me, we don't do it anymore, but at the time, I definitely feel like it was surprisingly enlightening in the sense that we all have a way that we process things, right? And no one really talks about that. That's the thing. It's like we have this agreement about what we want about culture, or we have this agreement on how we want this app to shape up. But when it comes to a process to do it, we loosely talk about it, but also not really in terms of how it applies to our own personal process, right? We have this process that we lay out in paper, but then we also have our own internal process, like how we think and how we think through things. And one of the things that I realized time and time again, and it's not unique to work, to be honest, is that I clearly like to skip steps. Right. And I don't put them down, but I have them all in my head. I just realize that what I think is important to put down is not what everyone else thinks is important to put down. And I think I got into this habit because, again, I was working for myself, right? I didn't have to share knowledge with a team. I put knowledge down that was important to me. And, steps 3, 4, and 5, I knew inherently, and I didn't need to kind of share that with anyone. And so, like, as you start to communicate with either, just even with you, Andrew, or someone else on the team, I realized that I had to explain how I got to 6 versus jump from 1 to 6. I needed to say, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is how I got to 6, right? That was interesting for myself to realize that I had this little hole. And also that you were kind of the opposite and that you needed me to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was that's pretty much it there, right? And so just backing up a little bit, Clifton Strengths is it's not a personality test. It's a survey that kind of helps you understand what your strengths are. That's not necessarily your personality, although it might be related. There's something like 30 plus strengths or something, and they get ranked. They have general categories for those strengths, such as achievement and strategy.
Strategies, something, something. Yeah.
Connector is another one, stuff like that there, right? And for your the strengths that you led with most in those categories was strategic, right? And if you're interested in Clifton strengths here, then what you have to understand is that all of these titles and names, they're only kind of loosely related with their like kind of day-to-day pedestrian definitions there. It means something very specific to this kind of system otherwise. And for the strategic thing, what it meant for you, and this was eye-opening when I read it, because, oh my God, I read it and I said, that's two. And it was that you will connect dots really quickly, and then you assume that other people have connected the dots as well, and then you're ready to move on. Or other people, especially if we're kind of discussing or working on something new, may have not have gotten there yet, right? And then suddenly you moved on to something else. And so now what's been really nice about this system or these ideas is that now that we have an understanding of each other about how we communicate, how we think there, and there's a word for it, I can tell you when that's happening. I said, hey,
Right.
you're doing the strategery thing again, and we need to back up, right? And then other things for me too, like I remember when you read mine and other people have read mine as well. We share all of our results with each other because that's the whole point of it, because it helps us all work better together. That I lead with like this achiever kind of strength here, right? And two things about that I think everybody on our team kind of understands now is that one, I have a very high capacity for working and focusing on things for a long period of time. I think that's one of the reasons why, if we think about our hobbies, right? 30 years in judo, 20 years in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, 5 years in piano, 20 years in Argentine tango, right? Like all these other things here, 5 years in outrigger canoe at this point. And it's that I have a really high capacity for, if I want to master something, just doing it over and over and over it again. I have like a special talent for repetition there. That's why I chop onions really fast. But then also, what's really fun about the system is that it points out these are your strengths, but these are the ways that it can manifest as weaknesses or challenges for other people. And for me, it was that if I work really hard and if I don't perceive that other people are working as hard as I am, then I could get really frustrated by that. Right. And so That's something that, I think over time I've worked on a lot, all while still being, holding things to a very high standard. It was a really interesting way to understand ourselves better, but then understand everybody on the team better.
I'm definitely glad we did it, and I still retain things from it for sure. I think that was a useful, a useful task, or I wouldn't say it was like a task, but I
Right?
mean,
I call it an exercise.
okay, fine, an exercise. It was a good exercise that we went through, and maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, but I definitely retained things from it for sure. Definitely think that our communication improved after that. It wasn't
Mhm.
bad, but it definitely improved, right? Like, we
Yeah.
understood where the holes were and where we could help each other out better, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's definitely helped our team work well together as a result. And so, and it's different than, say, a personality test. It's not like a Myers-Briggs because you're strategic. You're not. It's not necessarily an intuition thing, although they could be related, right? But if
Right.
you're an INTJ, I mean, what does that mean, right? It's just as much as like I can't work with a Cancer or something.
Yeah,
It's like,
I'm not really, I don't even know those, like, acronyms.
yeah, but
TJES?
you
I don't
learned a
know,
new
like, I don't
acronym
even know what
today,
they are.
right? 9 6 or so.
No,
So
no. Yeah. So, going back to, the culture and like, what do I need to kind of not meander? What I've learned about myself too is that I need to take a break from things. That's just the truth. It's like, hey, like, what will allow me to take a break and not think about this thing? Because I do have a habit of just thinking about things for, not like, I learned that moving a mouse around is not really thinking about things, right? Like, you can just move pixels forever. But one of the things, like, I recognize from like other workplaces, or going back to work culture, oh, I worked 12 hours like yesterday, and they wear it like a badge. And if you really think about like what they were able to achieve versus what they said, did you think about work for 12 hours? Did you actually do something for 12 hours? There's a drastic difference. I don't consider myself thinking about something for 12 hours as me working on it. Thinking is just thinking. And sometimes I realize I need a break from it because I can't break through this wall. And surprisingly, when I make other things, I'm able to take a break from it. That's probably why I like to create such a variety of things, is that, hey, like, I'm trying to solve this problem in a new way. Right. So, hey, well, I learned a thing about resins, and like learned a thing about how to get rid of holes, and the fact that there weren't actually any metal molds for keycaps, and you have to grind them down, and all these things I had to learn, like cherry MX, blah 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 blah, right? And then when I get to a place where I'm too in the details, I actually need to create. Like, I've learned all these things, but I actually can't create the thing because I found like all these. I actually do this online. I just build things online. There's no like well, there's Minecraft or Valheim. Like, right now, I'm building a Gothic cathedral. There's no cleanup. There's no super complex thing that I have to solve, right? And I can just go make something and feel like I accomplished something. And so that's kind of some of the things I do, like, outside of work, because like when you get into something, you realize like how deep you have to go. And that part of it is a practice. It's not like you can't master it overnight, right? And so in some of the details, it just gets like pretty tedious. And I just want to be able to create something. That's probably why I could never be an architect and I was a photo major, because there's like that instant hit of, I'm going to take this picture and it's going to show up, and I don't have to wait 20 years for this building to be done. The gist of it is find something to do outside of work, and don't let work be the end all be all, right? You want to be able to know that you're doing this for a reason, and usually that reason is not related to your desk. It's usually probably related to something that's not on your desk, right? Time with family and friends, cuddling the cat, being able to create something for no money, essentially, right? Is not like being constrained to the fact that you have to do this because of XYZ. Someone needs money, you need a paycheck, so on and so forth. Like, remove some of those constraints and just like enjoy, if you possibly can, enjoy the moment and enjoy today.
Yeah, and if you're watching right now, tell us what your reasons are, right? Why are you working so hard? There's got to be a reason behind it, and tell us what your hobbies are. We're interested to find out.
Thanks, Andrew. Guess what? I'll be seeing you this weekend at your show.
Oh, you are? Cool. Did I send
I
you the
think.
flyer?
No, but
Okay. All right.
you're gonna send it soon.
Yeah, yeah. I'll post it in the Slack, I guess. So, all right, cool. I'll see you on Sunday then. All right.
See ya. Have a good one.
See ya.
Slide into my DMs if you want me to sneak a video of Andrew.